Hello, and welcome to Historically Inaccurate, Episode 1 From Roman Britain to Saxon England. I'm your host, Sean, and today we're tackling one of the most deliciously frustrating periods in British history. A time so murky, historians need night vision goggles and a healthy dose of guesswork, relieving the orderly road-mapped, underfloor heated world of Roman Britain and plunging headfirst into the misty, muddy, and monumentally confusing era that gives us the Anglo-Saxons. Picture this. It's the early 5th century. The last Roman legions have packed up their stylish sandals and sailed off, leaving behind a post-Roman Britain shivering in the drizzle. The bill has come due for the Pax Romana. And into this power vacuum step, well, we're not entirely sure. That's our problem. This is the story of the dawn of Anglo-Saxons, but we're not jumping straight into King Alfred burning cakes and fighting Vikings. Oh no, we're going to the weird, long prologue, the roughly 400-year gap from around 410 AD to the 8th century, where British history seems to have taken a long lunch break and forgotten to take minutes. Alright. Buckle up. We're going to critically evaluate why this era is so ostentatiously, frustratingly obscure. Was it an apocalypse invasion, a peaceful integration? Did everyone just forget how to write things down? And what does this national identity crisis mean for Britain's story? Let's dig in. First, let's set the stage. Roman Britain wasn't just togas and orgies and baths. It was a functioning province with cities, villas, tax collectors, and blended Romano-British elite, who probably complained about the weather and the state of the roads, which, to be fair, were the best they've ever been for another 1,000 years. Then, Rome itself starts to crumble. Troops are headed back home. By 410 AD, Emperor Honorius, I probably said that wrong, famously sends a letter to the Britons, essentially saying, "You're on your own, lads, sort out your own defense." It's the bureaucratic equivalent of a parent texting university students, "Figure out your own groceries, you're cut off." What's left? A society to build on the Roman system, but with the Roman military and administrative engine removed? Imagine turning off the central server in a huge corporation. The lights are on, but the payroll's stopped. The security guards are gone, and regional marriages are suddenly looking at the chair and thinking, Is this a throne? This is the sub-Roman period. The Britons didn't vanish. They tried to keep the Roman show on the road. They even appealed to a Roman general named Aetus for help in the mid-5th century, a plea known as the Groans of the Britons. It reads like a community group email that starts with, "Per my last scroll," and gets increasingly desperate. And now our main characters arrive. Or do they? The traditional story, courtesy of later writers like Venerable Bede and the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, is one of violent invasion. Waves of Angles, Saxons, and Jutes from modern-day Denmark and Germany rowing in, slaughtering the Britons, pushing them west into Wales and Cornwall. It's the Saxon invasion. Model, clean, dramatic, a clear break. But here's where our critical evaluation starts. Archaeology throws a big, muddy spanner in this works. We don't find neat layers of destruction in every city followed by completely new German-style stuff. Instead, we find a messy picture. Some Roman towns fade away, the roofs collapsing in the countryside. We find early Saxon-style brooches and pottery, sometimes in the same post-Roman farmsteads as British-style goods. It looks less like a blitzkrieg and more like a long, complicated shuffle. Maybe some Saxons were hired as mercenaries to defend post-Roman Britain. The let the fox guard the henhouse strategy, which never ends well. Maybe there was a slow migration, intermarriage, and cultural change over the generations. The DNA studies suggest it was a mix of immigration and the existing population adopting new cultural labels. Think of it as less England versus Britain and more like a messy corporation rebanding, where the old stuff gradually starts using the new logo. So why the violent stories? Well, people writing them down centuries later were the winners, the Anglo-Saxons. They had an interest in foundation myth of heroic conquest, and the Britons had their own version, full of tragic loss embodied in the legend of King Arthur, the Romano-British warlord holding back the Saxon tide. Two national myths born from the same murky reality. This brings us to the core mystery. Why is this period, roughly 450 to 600 AD, so historically inaccessible? Reason 1, the literacy cliff. Romans were bureaucracy nuts. They wrote everything down: tax records, shopping lists, curse tablets against people who stole their laundry. Post-Roman Britain saw a catastrophic collapse in widespread literacy and administrative record keeping. The Anglo-Saxons had a runic alphabet, but they weren't writing chronicles yet. So, 450 years, we have almost no contemporary written sources from inside Britain. It is a narrative black hole. Reason 2. The archaeology of ephemera. Probably said that wrong as well. The early Anglo-Saxons didn't build in stone, they built in wood, wattle, and daub. Wood rots. They were also largely non-Christian at first, so no churches. The material culture is found in what survives: metalwork, graves, and pottery. It's like trying to reconstruct our entire society solely from the contents of a few buried jewelry boxes and some broken plates. You'll get fashion and craft, but definitely not politics. Reason 3, the muddy middle. This wasn't a simple binary switch from Roman to Saxon. There were likely multiple identities jostling. Roman or British, various Saxon and Anglo groups, other Germanic, and maybe even Irish migrants. When societies are fragmented and identities are fluid, there's no single story to tell. It's all local gossip that never got written down. It's not that nothing happened, it's that what happened was incredibly local, complex, and poorly recorded. It was the ultimate you had to be there era, and sadly, nobody who was there was keeping a diary. So, when does the fog lift? With two things: Christianity and competition. Christian missionaries like Augustine, sent by the Pope in 1597, brought back Latin literacy, chronicles, and need to write things down to impress Rome and other kingdoms. Secondly, as those small rival Saxon kingdoms, Bercensia, Deira, Wessex, Mercia, began to bump into each other, often violently, they needed to legitimize themselves. They started tracing royal lineages back to gods like Woden and writing down their versions of events. History became a tool of power like it's always been. By the time the Viking storm hits in the late 8th century, these kingdoms had solidified enough to have recorded history worth attacking. We know about Alfred the Great because he commissioned the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. He understands the power of the narrative. The period before him was obscure in part because no one had yet consolidated enough power to care about a national story. In conclusion, what does it mean for British history? So, what does this long lost dawn really mean? Firstly, it makes British identity inherently synthetic. England is born from a slow, messy fusion of Celtic, British, Roman, and Germanic influences. Stewed for centuries, there was no clean slate. Secondly, it creates a permanent myth-making space. The lax of fact is a vacuum filled by legends. Arthur, for the Britons, heroic founding sagas. For the Anglo-Saxons, this ambiguity becomes a powerful tool used for centuries to justify claims of ancient sovereignty or racial purity, all based on a period we fundamentally don't understand. Finally, it's a profound lesson in historical humility. Sometimes the answer to what happened is we genuinely don't know, and we have to live with the puzzle. The Anglo-Saxon dawn is Britain's dark, formative childhood. We have vague memories, a few traumatic flashes, and some odd artifacts in the attic, but the full story is lost to time, and that ambiguity is ironically one of the most defining things about it. To be true, it makes it interesting. It's the period where Britain stopped being a Roman outpost and started becoming an island of competing, feisty hybrid kingdoms. They forgot how to build a hypocaust, but they were learning how to build a nation. Next week, or whenever I make the next week's just what podcast people usually say, and this is the first episode. Next time, we'll hopefully emerge from the mist into a glittering, beautiful world of the 7 Saxon kingdoms, where history gets a bit clearer and the backstabbing gets much more documented. Until then, keep questioning the simple stories. This has been Historically Inaccurate. I'm Sean, and thanks for listening.